allegiance.
He said, as long as I have eyes, I'll, paraphrasing obviously, but I'll continually look out for myself. But he said, in a very, no uncertain terms, he said, but I choose you. And I'm choosing you, and that means I'm going to use all of my tricks of my trade and my army of whispers for your benefit. Yeah. And so don't make me change who I am, because it's going to nerf me. Let me continue to be who I think I can be.
So thought on, the whole overarching piece, right? For me, it was bigger than Varys. It was Dany saying, I have to look out for everybody that I'm trusting in this room. It wasn't necessarily her saying, I don't trust you specifically, but also calling out, I'm more powerful than you. You're here because of me, and let me make sure that I can figure that out. And then, kudos to Eric again. He kind of pointed out a really good piece. Is Varys still important to the story? He's obviously powerful. People keep him around. But what I feel like is happening is Varys and Littlefinger are both getting casted to the shadows where they kind of have always been. Now that they're getting closer and closer to that power role, I think it's House of Cards that says proximity is power, right? And you're how close are you to the president? And now it's Littlefinger is in Sansa's ear, and she keeps saying, "Yeah, get out of here, you little cockroach," right? And how does now Varys handle Dany being you even so much as try to cross me and you're dead? And in fact, she'll light him on fire, right? So
probably,
yeah, dragging him.
So let's roll on this. Do a nice little seamless transition here to the north, and Littlefinger. That moment that he had with Jon Snow in the catacombs was amazing. That was a payoff, I think, for so many people for so many seasons. It's how has nobody just pop this little twerk? You know what I mean? He's made so many enemies, but he seems to be able to smooth talk his way out of all of it. And he goes down there just to sort of test the waters with Jon Snow. I think he was really trying to see. I don't know if this was part of his master plan that we've been seeing sort of in motion so far, of him trying to put a wedge between Jon and Sansa. I'm sure that was part of it. But to see him, I think it was the breaking point for Jon was when he brought up his mother. He said, I love Sansa as I loved her mother. And then Jon turned around, put his hand around his throat and put him up against the wall, and he said, if you ever, don't talk to my sister. Yeah. Jon is fully aware. So this is the other half of the party here, where we've seen Sansa tell, like you said, Joe, go fuck yourself. Littlefinger, I know what you're up to, and I'm not interested in it. Now Jon has said it too. Yeah. So where I keep wanting to say Tyrion. Where is Littlefinger right now in terms of the power that he has and in the sway that he has in the north? I mean, especially now that Jon has gone off to meet. Oh my god, I can't even believe what I'm saying. Jon's gone off to meet Daenerys, which is just so fucking cool. We will get there in a second. We will get there big time, but. Now that Sansa is left as the ruler of the North, the Queen of the North, I don't know what her official title will be, where does that leave the power struggle and the influence that Littlefinger has over Sansa? What do you guys think?
He still controls the Knights of the Vale.
Which is a huge, I think you mentioned last week, that's a huge force.
Yeah.
A huge force.
That is, except for the Battle of the Bastards, they have been kind of out of play. Since the very beginning. So I think that's important to keep in mind. But Sansa has learned a lot over the last 7 years, at least our time. Who knows how long it's been there.
Yeah.
And she's definitely capable. But, I don't know, I think she might still rely on Littlefinger, potentially too much as an advisor, to keep everybody in line. And that may not be the best thing in the world.
Yeah. I think they're getting to this place where they know that these people are important, but the greater cause has been shown to some of those people that they can't whisper behind their backs and say, no, you need to trust me more. Right? The Knights of the Vale, Littlefinger might be the person in the room. Technically, it's Robin Arryn, right, would be the king of the Vale.
That little twerk.
Yeah, but so it's there might be a way around that. The thing that's always scarier is we don't know everything that they know, right? They always have their hands in more than what you can really even see from the show. So I think they're important, and I think they will get cast aside. It's just when, because everybody wants Littlefinger to die. He feels like such an easy chopping block, but then he might end up on the throne just because of that.
Let me ask you guys this question then: can Littlefinger be redeemed? Is there a scenario that could occur where his past debts would be forgiven, and you understand that now he's on the side of Jon Snow to fight against the White Walkers or Cersei?
I think it would be really hard for him to get full trust back, knowing what the Starks know about what he did to Ned. It could put together about what he did to Ned, right, specifically. And if they all are under the same impression, how could you ever trust somebody about that again? But, of course, there's ways to redeem himself if he has ways to kill the White Walkers or help them actually fight the North. It's just how do they trust him to give him a position of enough power to do so?
Mm-hmm. Cool. Okay, where should we go next? Let's travel. We're really jumping on this episode, so I apologize for that, guys. Let's maybe we can bring it back to sort of the beginning of the episode here, and talk about Daenerys' War Council. Daenerys' War Council sort of kicked off the beginning part of the episode, and we got back to it a bit later once Yara and Theon and the fleet and Ilaria had joined to discuss what their next moves were going to be. There was this moment where we saw Daenerys look at the painted table and go, well, that's not so many lions. It's like that moment that we've all been talking about. We're like, how is Cersei, even able to mount a force against, Daenerys and team and stuff? And finally, it was talked about too, which I've heard a lot of people bring this up just in conversations about the show, is like, you got 3 dragons, just go fucking sack the place and take it, and it'll be no problem. And she could do that.
Yeah.
But what we saw was a verification of Daenerys' character. A lot of people are upset about that, or I say a lot of people, in the small group of people that I talk to about Game of Thrones, are upset that, why doesn't Daenerys just go do this? But it couldn't be more in line with who we've seen Daenerys be as a character, where she's freeing slaves, she's winning the hearts and minds of the people. She's not going to go be the Queen of Ashes, as they call it in the show, right? She's not going to go and, hurt those who don't deserve to be hurt, so...
It's a fair point, and what I was thinking most is when Tyrion's like saying, well, we can do all this strategy work and break it up, but it's like your power seems to be in your force and your numbers, especially now that we know how big Euron's fleet is, for example. But I think they have to be sneaky, because when you're sitting in King's Landing, you have all these assets at your disposal, right, in these castles. And I think like going after Casterly Rock is a great stronghold idea, but I did find it interesting that it's like, why don't you go back to Dorne and just pick up some more ships and then come on back, and then you'll attack from the south, right? So I don't know. I found it weird that he decided to just break everybody up and go at different angles.
Well, and the original idea was that the fleet that was headed out there was supposed to start the siege of King's Landing. They weren't supposed to make a move on the city, but they were supposed to just kind of keep the Lannister forces that are there occupied.
Yeah, they were essentially playing...
it was a great game of chess.
Yeah.
They were supposed to hold the queen there while the Dothraki and the Unsullied go and take Casterly Rock.
Right.
And meanwhile, they're sending the Greyjoy force out there to be the Uber of the seas to go pick up the Dornish army.
Yeah,
and bring
pretty
them back.
much.
So now that, for all intents and purposes, the ending of the show has shown that the Dornish army is now out of this war.
Maybe.
I don't know if they're still waiting there, checking their phones.
Well, yeah.
Really and who's now in command of the Dornish army at this point either. At one point, I vaguely remember Bronn he had some kind of appointment in Sunspear, so
that'd be cool.
That'd be a neat way to reintroduce his character.
Well, he was promised a royal bride, right?
Yeah.
From a long time ago with Jaime. So,
but then that means he's probably gonna use the Dornish army on Jaime's behalf in the well, that's never gonna happen because the blood feud between the Lannisters and the Dornish.
Yeah, no, Dorne never put up with that, but he was with Tyrion there for a little while too, so there's a positive relationship there, I would say.
So here's a question that I have for you guys. I am confused because I think some of the logic that Daenerys was using in her strategy was, we can't have the Dothraki and the Unsullied storm King's Landing because the whole pitch that Cersei is giving the Tarleys and all of the lords of Westeros is, don't let these dirty, Unsullied and uncouth and crazy barbaric Dothraki taint our lands. Help us defend our homeland. And so she says, well, we need to have the Dornish attack because at least then it's Westerosi people that are attacking.
Yeah, I think it was also to uprise against the Queen, though, to show that Westeros is in a united front, to say, oh, look at all these Dornish people. But yeah, continue.
But my only question was, doesn't King's Landing in general hate the Dornish, or is that just the Lannisters?
It's just the Lannisters. It's a long-standing feud between the two houses. And I mean, Cersei even it even seems like the PR that's going out about this.
Twitter.
Twitter. Whatever the Ravens are, I
Tweet
guess.
about it. Yeah.
It's Cersei's trying to convince the people that this is an invasion force. This isn't, the Targaryens coming back. This is an invading army from far away across the sea who aren't us. So that's kind of an interesting piece to look at, too.
You're totally right, because from their perspective, you've got this crazy dragon lady riding in on 3 dragons with all of these Unsullied and Dothraki who are just brutal war tribes and people. And they're coming out of their lands. For all these lords they know that over in Meereen, they crucified lords because they were slave owners. And so, from their perspective, this is a terrifying notion that this person's coming over and threatening them. And so, they're looking to the queen for help. But, to play off of that PR scene a bit, too, where do you guys think Randall Tarly is coming out on all of this? Because there was some really interesting back and forth there where, and actually one of my favorite lines of the episode was when Tarly and Jaime were talking, and Tarly was like, well, we don't, stab our alliances in the back or cut their throats at weddings. And it was just like, ooh, shit. Man, you do not mess with Sam's pop. That was pretty cool. So where do you guys think Tarly's eventually going to align and why?
I feel like that was a Marlon Brando type deal, one he can't refuse, right? Like, I don't feel like there's anywhere else for him to go. He wants to be in his homeland, and he wants to be in the South, so that's a plus. Olenna Tyrell is obviously a good friend and an ally of his, but it feels pretty easy for him to say, yeah, well, if you make me warden of the South, I guess I can look past that. Something I found really fascinating just before this, and it's kind of a sidebar, is that both sides are now comparing the queens that sit in power as the Mad King. So if you listen to Dany talk, she's like, the Mad King is Cersei, right? And if you listen to Cersei talk to all the lords that are inside of the chambers,
this is the daughter of the Mad King, and thus the new Mad King.
Yeah, and that's such an easy lineage. But like, if you look at the past, what we've seen is like, okay, breaker of chains. She frees, slave people, etc. She wants to be wholesome, but at the same time, she has this obvious, and in this Stormborn episode, this really obvious like power struggle or power thirst to say, like, I am the ruler of the kingdoms. Like, just because I don't sit there doesn't mean I don't, right? She just has to get there. So I just want to bring that up real quick. But I think Randall Tarly is going to be probably on the Lannister side, also because if they don't have any other allies, it would be the Tarlys and Euron, and now maybe the Dornish or whomever, however that plays out. But I think it would be on their side.
Quick side note too, that was a new actor, right? That was playing his son. For sure, that was a new actor that was playing his son.
I think that's why they threw that joke in there. He's like, which one are you again? He's like, he asked if he was
Rickon,
yeah,
right?
and he's like, no, it's Dickon. And he's like, oh yeah, and then he like moved on.
No, that was weird.
I feel like they had to do that.
I kind of almost missed it.
Yeah.
I think I like turned away for a second, and I was like, wait, what? So
ridiculous.
I got to go back and watch that specific section again.
So, in addition, I know we're probably like trying to get away from this, but I found the whole table scene, the painted table scene, really fascinating. One, because obviously Dany's back home. Two, because it's surrounded mainly by women. We don't see that much.
Absolutely,
And women power in this show is so huge and so important. And my wife likes to remind me all the time, like, this is a theme that's going on here. Bloodlines are through men. If you're a woman, you're at the end of the bloodline. Not only are those, we have Missandei, we have Dany, we have Olenna, we have Ilaria, we have Yara. A lot of auras in there, all in the same room, all making battle plans. Tyrion's the one they decided to trust because obviously he had thought about it. He knows the actual realm, but she's trusting women around her more than men. In addition, Jon leaves Dragonstone and leaves Sansa in charge, which is only, I think, is a really big trust in her to say, I don't think Littlefinger has you around his finger like people think you do, and you're a strong woman, and I want you to be in power. So I just wanted to see if you guys had any additional comments on that specifically.
Yeah, no, that painted table scene at the very beginning of the episode was very empowering to women, I think. It was also just really cool to watch, because, I mean, clearly these are women who, they don't like each other, not necessarily.
Yeah.
I mean, the tension in the room was definitely palpable.
And they're talking just like lords of war. Right?
Yeah.
There's no difference. It's like Yara's talking about how do we go at sea, and Ilaria's talking about how do we like penetrate and get into King's Landing specifically. So I just thought
it was just an awesome scene.
There's one thing that stood out to me about that scene in particular, and it was the power that excuse me. Thank you for all the beer, John, as I continue to burp on mic. But